All right, so we are talking about midpoints. We know from last week that the midpoint obviously occurs at the exact halfway point on a segment. It creates two congruent segments, right? It takes my original and cuts it into two equal congruent halves. So today we're really going to focus on midpoints in the coordinate plane, though. Okay, so if I had coordinate plane, and let's just say I had a point A here at approximately 1, 1. And then I had another point B here. Let's say it was at 3, 4. And I wanted to find the midpoint of this segment. Well, I can approximate it, right? I mean, I can certainly eyeball it. So my midpoint is going to be somewhere right about there, but I can't just eyeball things. I need to be able to know for certain where midpoints are. I can't just guess. So luckily for us, there's a pretty easy way to mathematically determine the ordered pair for that midpoint. It's really kind of nice and easy too. So does anybody want to guess before I tell you? How would you figure out what that ordered pair is of this red dot, besides just guessing? Do you think you have a way that would work? Anybody have a guess? Does it involve subtracting? Actually, no. No, we're not going to subtract here.
Can't you just look at the line?
Well, you can guess where it is, but I could give an approximation. There's got to be a way for me to know exactly where this is. And what happens if it doesn't fall perfectly on like even if I had actual graph paper, what if it doesn't fall nicely on one of those lattice points? What if it's really at like 1.7, 2.49? You know what I mean? Like there would be no way for me to just look at it and know. But there is a way, as long as I know the endpoints, there is a way for me to get the actual answer. I'll tell you. I was just curious if anybody had any guesses. To find the coordinate of a midpoint in the coordinate plane, find you ready for this? You're going to find the average of the endpoints. So think about average. Like if you want to find your test average, you're going to take, say we've taken, I don't know, 4 tests, pretend. You add up all 4 tests together, right? You add up your scores, and then don't you divide by 4? And that would give you your test average, right? So I'm basically doing the same thing. I'm just going to average these 2 endpoints together. So, but you have to be careful though. You can only add x's with x's and you can only add y's with y's. So what I'm going to do is I'm literally going to add the x's together and divide by 2 because I have 2 endpoints, right? I'll do the same thing then with the y's. I'm going to add the y's together and I'm going to divide by 2. And that will give me a new ordered pair, which is exactly halfway in between the 2. And doesn't it make sense, right? Wouldn't the average be where they meet, like that middle ground? Okay, so let's put this in words. In other words, add the x's together and divide by 2. Then add the y's together and divide by 2. those numbers are now the coordinates of the midpoint. I'll show you this in action. Don't worry. Let me just give you a minute to jot this down. Okay, so I'm going to show you what the formulas look like. So it's me just putting these words into math, right? So this is what it looks like. We're going to find the x coordinate of the midpoint by adding the first x and the second x together and dividing by 2. All right, I know this looks weird at first, but once we do an example out, I think it'll be a lot more clear what all these pieces are. But this is just the x coordinate of the midpoint, so that's why we put the small MID down here, just so we know, okay, that's the x of the midpoint. And then x1 and x2 are just the x values of my endpoints. All right, and then we do the same thing for y. So the y of the midpoint, we would find that by adding the 2 y's together, oops, and dividing by 2. Okay, so when you put these two together, x of the midpoint, comma, y of the midpoint, that is the coordinate of your midpoint. Okay, so let's actually do it with the example that we did up above. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to copy down what the coordinates of the endpoints were, and then we can pop them in here and see exactly how it works. Okay, let me zoom out a little bit, or I guess just move this down. There we go. All right, so A was at the ordered pair 1, 1, and B was at the ordered pair 3, 4. So that was the example that I gave you up at the top when I drew it. Okay, so I have those two. And now all I have to do is sort of follow these two formulas. Remember, I'm trying to find x of the midpoint and y of the midpoint. You have these numbers. You have x1, x2, y1, y2. You have them right here. Now, it never matters who you call the first point and who you call the second point. That really doesn't matter. I mean, usually we just say that the top one is the first one, right? So I would just come in here. I like to do this. I just like to remind myself, remember, it's always the x value that's first. So I just say, okay, that's the x value of my first point. And then this is just the y value of my first point. And then I come down here and I do the same thing. This is the x value of my second point. And this is the y value of my second point. So now it's very clear who x1 is and who y1 is. There's no question. You don't have to label them, but I find it helpful just so that I don't get mixed up later. Okay, so now I have all the pieces that I need. If I want to find the x value of the midpoint, according to this formula, look what I'm doing. I'm going to add x1 plus x2 together, and then I'll divide by 2. So if I look here, okay, x1 is just 1. Plus, let's see, what's x2? 3. So I'm going to add those two things together, divide by 2. So now it's just up to me to do the math. Well, this math is really easy. 1 plus 3 is just 4, and 4 divided by 2 is just 2. So I have the x-coordinate of my midpoint. It's going to be at 2 comma something. I don't know what the something is yet, but I have half of my answer already. Now I just do the exact same thing for the y's, and I'll be done. So to find y of my midpoint, I'm going to add the two y's together. Let's see, y1, according to this, I start with y1, that's 1, plus y2 is 4. And I need to divide by 2. Okay, now it's just doing the math. 1 plus 4 is just 5. 5 divided by 2 is going to be a decimal, but so what? You can have decimals. So I get 2.5. So that's my y coordinate. And there we have it. That's my midpoint. I have found the midpoint of segment AB. If A is at 1, 1 and B is at 3, 4. 2.5. Okay, and if I could take a moment and just sneak back up to my diagram, let's see if 2.5 even looks like it's in the realm of possibility here. Let's just look. I like to check. I know I'm not using, maybe for the next example, I'll actually put it on a coordinate plane. But if that's 1, 1, right? So this is 1. Then yeah, that's about 2. And then this is about 3. Okay. Yes. So 2 is certainly right there. And then if this is 1, and then I made this one 4 up here. So then maybe 2 is about here. 3 is about here. Yeah, this looks totally plausible. If it's supposed to be at 2 comma 2.5, yeah, that looks right about right. Again, I'm freehanding this, so it's not going to be perfect. But this works. If I got something that was like, 10 comma 19, that's way off, and I know it's not right. So again, math always looking out for you. If it doesn't appear to be a reasonable answer, it's probably not. Okay, let me do one on an actual ordered coordinate plane. Let's see, I've got one here. I'll just start a new one. Give me 1 second. I gotta draw my lines nice. Still need to get a ruler in here. All right, so here is a coordinate plane, and let's go ahead and I'm just going to pick 2 random points, right? I don't know. I'll pick one to be right here. So here's my point A, and then maybe I'll have point B somewhere. I don't know, right there looks good. All right, so I want to find the midpoint, the coordinate of the midpoint between these two. Let me connect these dots. Okay, so here is my line segment. I'm looking, I could eyeball it. I know it's going to be somewhere about right in here, but I don't know exactly where. I'm not sure. What I can do is use the coordinates of the endpoint to find it exactly, so I don't have to guess. All right, I know this might be a little small for you guys, so it might be hard for you to see where these endpoints are, but this one, A, is at -3, comma 1. -3, 1, and then B, let's see where you're at. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, comma 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Oh, that's 7, 7. How about that? So I have these two. I'm going to try this same thing that I just did. I want to add those x's together, see what I get, divide by 2, and then I'm going to add the y's together and divide by 2, and we'll see where it lands. Okay, you ready? Let's try it. So I'm going to come over here, and I'm going to write on the plain paper just because it's easier. So I'll just copy those ordered pairs, -3, 1 and 7, 7. Then we'll come back and see if we're right. So I have A at -3, 1, and then B is at 7, 7. All right, perfect. So I personally like to come in and just say, okay, this is the x coordinate of my first point. This is the y coordinate of my first point. And then I like to say this is the x coordinate of my second point and the y coordinate of my second point. So now I know exactly who's who, and I don't have to think about it later. So now all I have to do is come in and do the formula. So to find the x coordinate of the midpoint, remember, I'm going to add the two x's together. x1, which is -3, plus x2, which happens to be 7. It doesn't matter that one of my numbers is negative. Who cares? It doesn't matter. I'm still just going to do the math. Let me zoom in a little bit here. So the math tells me -3 plus 7 just so happens to be 4. 4 divided by 2, that's weird. We got 2 again. It's not. It's obviously not always going to be 2, but it just so happened that way this time. So anyway, there's my x coordinate. So I know it's going to be at 2 comma something. I just don't know what the something is yet. Well, let's figure it out. I'm going to do the exact same process just with the y's. So let me see if I can squeeze it in over here. Y of the midpoint. I'm going to add the two y's together. So if I look, y1 was 1 and y2 is 7. So I'm going to do 1 plus 7 and divide it by 2. 1 plus 7 is 8, and 8 divided by 2 is 4. So that means 2 comma 4 is my answer. Let's go back to the grid and see if that even looks like it's going to be right. Because now I did this on a graph, so this should be spot on. All right, if I plot 2 comma 4, is it really the midpoint? 2, 1, 2, 3. Check it out. That's so cool. So that really is my midpoint. 2 comma 4. Yeah, that's perfect. It all worked out perfectly. I got lucky here that all the numbers were nice and I didn't have any fractions. You definitely can have fractions. Your initial points don't even necessarily have to start at nice points, right? They could be anywhere. The original points could have decimals in them. And then there's absolutely no way that I'm going to be able to say exactly where that midpoint is. If the starting numbers aren't even on these lattice points, these are called lattice points, by the way, where the grid lines meet. So things are nice and easy when things fall on the lattice points, but they don't always have to. They could be anywhere. Should I do one? Okay, good idea. Good idea. Let's use red now. We'll switch gears. What if I had something like, sorry, I can never get the camera just where I want it. Let's say we had a point C that was here, like in the middle of this box. And then we had a point D that was, oh, I don't know, how about there? Oh. So here's my segment CD. Let me connect these with a straight edge as best I can. Again, I don't know why I don't have a ruler right here, but I don't. Now, I'm always going to have to give you enough information to know where these endpoints are. So let's say for C, that I'm going to put it -1.5, -2.5. So that's where we'll put C. And then D is at 1, 2, 3, 4, comma, and this would be at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, -7.5. Okay, so again, I can eyeball where the middle is, but I don't know exactly. It's going to be somewhere right in here. Oh, wouldn't it be funny if it was right at that perfect point? Could be. I have no idea. I just know it's going to be in this ballpark. All right, let's see what the numbers come out. So again, I'm going to copy just these ordered pairs on my other sheet, and we'll do the math out over there. Okay, so we're going to have point C, which is at, we said C was at -1.5, comma, -2.5. And then we also have D, which is at 4, comma, -7.5. All right. I don't need the grid to do these problems, right? This is just kind of neat that I'm able to verify visually that I'm doing it right. But you can, I mean, I could give you a problem that's just this. In fact, I'll do that in a minute. So we're not going to graph every single one of them out, but you can, and it is nice to check and verify, yeah, I am absolutely doing this right because it all lines up on the graph. So anywhoosers, I have this. I'm going to come in and I'm going to say, all right, this is the x coordinate of my first point. This is the y coordinate of my first point. This is the x coordinate of my second point and the y coordinate of my second point. So when I go to pop all these in the formula, I don't even need to think about it. So to find the x coordinate of the midpoint, I'm adding those two x's together. So let's see. I have a -1.5 plus 4, and I'm going to divide that by 2. Okay, you guys are always welcome to use calculators. I'm going to grab mine too. I don't know where my stuff. Oh, here it is. All right, so I have a -1.5 plus 4, which is just going to get me a 2.5, but I need to divide that by 2, right? So I'm just going to come in here, divide by 2, and I get 1.25. So that's the x coordinate of my midpoint. So I know it's going to be at 1.25 comma something. I just don't know the something yet. Well, let's figure it out. So I'm going to do the same thing for y. So to find y of the midpoint, let's see here. y1 is -2.5. Plus, now I'm going to add to it another -7.5. Remember, if both things have negatives on them, you really just add them together and keep it negative. That's all. And that just so happens to be a -10. And -10 divided by 2 is -5. So I know this thing, the midpoint's going to land at 1.25 comma -5. So let's look back on our grid and just see if that really does line up. 1.25 comma -5. All right, let's see. So here's my grid. So if I come in 1.25, so here's 1, and I just want to be a little bit over, and then I want -5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Ding, ding, ding. Check that out. And that point is perfectly the midpoint of CD. That's so cool. I know. It's splitting that segment exactly into 2 equal parts. Neat. All right, so I'm going to give you a few to try on your own. Let's see. I'm going to give you 3. And then we'll see how you do, okay? So let me find the midpoint of the following. So number 1, let me zoom out a little bit here. There we go. Number 1, your points are A is at 2,7 and B is at 8,1. All right, there's your first one. We're going to step it up a notch with the second one. For your second, I would like you to try having A at -2, -5. And B is now at 2, -4. And then for your third one, number 3, let's see if I can get this in here without running out of space. We're going to have A, I'm going to throw some decimals at you. 1.7, comma 2.4. And then B is going to be at -3.6, comma -2.9. All right, I'm going to zoom in just a smidge. So you're finding the midpoint for each of these 3 sets. Again, you are always welcome to use a calculator. Be very careful of your signs. Watch those negatives. I'm probably going to be calling on you at random, so please make sure you're ready to answer. Okay, let's see where we're at with number 1. So let me see who gets this one. They are not here. I always pick people that aren't here. Marissa, what did you get for number 1? What is your ordered pair for the midpoint? Okay, so let's rewind. So remember that all you need to do is add the x's together, divide by 2. So that'll get us our x coordinate. So if I'm looking at this, let me zoom way in on this. Okay, so if I want to find the x coordinate of the midpoint, I'm just adding my two x's together. Here's x1, here's x2. So I'm going to add 2 plus 8, and then I always just need to divide that answer by 2. So I will always do that. Add the x's, divide by 2. So 2 plus 8 is just 10, divide by 2. I get 5. So that means the first part of my coordinate is going to be 5. It'll be at 5 comma something. Now I just have to do the same exact thing with the y's. So can you tell me what the y answer would be?
4.
Yes, 4. So hopefully everybody got that same answer. She's getting 4 because she's doing y of the midpoint. She's going to add the two y's together, 7 and 1. Add them together, divide by 2. 7 plus 1 is just 8. 8 over 2, you get 4. There's my answer. It's at 5 comma 4. And I'm done. If you want to check it on graph paper, you can. You can plot 2, 7, and 8, 1 and see if halfway between them really is 5, 4. That's never a bad idea, right? It's always a good idea to check your work. But that one is going to be right. Let's move on to the second one. We're doing the exact same thing. I want to add the x's together, divided by 2, add the y's together, divided by 2. So what did you get as the ordered pair? Or at least give me the x value. What's the x coordinate of the midpoint? So what's the x value of your answer? Oh God, Anthony's not here. Michael, what'd you get for the x coordinate of the answer? Oh, Michael's not there. His chair's empty. Oh dear. Michael, where'd you go? Oh my gosh. You guys. Jeremy, what is the x coordinate?
X coordinate. The one up top.
I want to know what the x coordinate of the answer is. So what's the x coordinate of your midpoint?
-2.
Well, so take a look at what we did here for this last one.
Okay.
See how we add your x's together. See that? We added them together and then you divide by 2. So you're going to do the same thing here. Add those x coordinates together and divide by 2. What do you get?
0.
Yeah, 0 in this case. So when you add -2 plus 2, and I'm always going to divide by 2, always. So when I add those, I just happen to get 0, and 0 divided by 2 is just 0. So that means that the x coordinate of this answer is 0. So it's going to be at 0 comma something. Now I just have to do the same thing with the y's. So what is the answer that you got for the y's, Zoe? Zoe, are you still there?
I
yeah.
didn't even hear you say my name. I am so sorry. But what
That's
I
okay.
got for that was -4.5.
You are correct. -4.5. So this time the y's are -5 and -4. So I'm going to add those two together. -5 plus -4. Oops. And you always divide by 2 because we're just averaging them together, right? -5 and -4 is -9 over 2. And then I just turn that right into a decimal, make my life easy, -4.5. That's it. So this one just so happens to be at 0 comma -4.5. I'll just add that these are my answers. So when you're looking back at this later, you know that we finished once we found that midpoint. Okay, perfect. Now, the last one, you have decimals, right? So you probably used a calculator. Good idea. Michael, I see you're back. Give me the x coordinate of your midpoint here. What did you get? You can use this last example we did as a guide if that helps.
-1.
You're close. So here's x of the midpoint. So I'm going to add my two x's together. I have 1.7 plus a negative 3.6, right? And whatever I'm adding together, it doesn't matter what those numbers are, I'm always going to divide by 2. So I'm going to grab my calculator, and I'm going to ask my calculator to do 1.7 plus negative 3.6. That comes out to be a negative 1.9, but then I have to divide it by 2. So when I divide by 2, I get negative 0.95, which is close to -1, but not. I know it's a negative 0.95, so I might as well leave it as negative 9.5 or negative 0.95. Right? So there's my answer for the x coordinate. So this thing is going to be a negative 0.95 comma something. And then I do the same exact thing with the y's to figure out the something over there. Okay, so let's do the y answer, y at the midpoint. I'm going to add 2.4 plus a negative 2.9. And I'm going to divide the whole thing by 2. I'm going to ask my calculator to do the heavy lifting for me. 2.4 plus a negative 2.9. I get negative 0.5, but I need to divide that answer by 2. That's how I get a final answer of negative 0.25. Do you see that? Negative 0.25. So when I put it all together, that's my answer. If I was trying to do that in my head, I can't. Right? Or if I'm looking at the grid and I'm trying to plot this point, I'm only going to be able to ballpark it. I would never be able to get these numbers exactly without doing the math. So I know sometimes, especially if I give you the grid, it feels like it's really easy to find the middle because sometimes it is if it all lines up perfectly. But in real life, things don't line up perfectly. So we have to be able to know what math we're doing in order to get the right answer, because I can't just go through life and approximate. Could you imagine? Doesn't work that way, right? We need to be, I don't want anybody approximating my bank account, right? Unless it's in my favor. What if they rounded it like down? What if imagine I had like $1.2 million? I don't, but imagine, and someone was like, oh, let's just round it to $1 million. You just rounded away $200,000. Can't do that, right? We need to be specific. So just keep that in mind. Oh my gosh, could you imagine having that much money? What would you do? I don't even know. I think I'd start gardening. I feel like I'd have time to garden. Anyway, where am I? Is there anything that I want to cover here? No. So that's it. Notice, there is one other thing that I want to point out. Notice that all of my answers are written as ordered pairs. They're in parentheses with a comma between them. Okay, I'm going to jump to your homework really quick and just show you if you are not putting in the parentheses, it's going to mark you wrong. So I just want to make that abundantly clear right now. So let me just hop on over there. Your homework's going to be on delta again. And so if you feel confident and you're ready and you want to hop on over and try it on your own, you may. I'm going to do at least one or two of them with you. So let's see here. Yes. Okay, lovely. Let me share this. Okay, when you come in, you should see one blue assignment, the midpoints here. Notice there's only one skill. And you only have to get 8 of them. And this is a computer generated one. So this means even if it takes you 10 tries to get 8 of them correct, it doesn't matter. You're still going to get a 100. All right. So actually, there's no excuses for why we all don't get 100 on this, right? Because it doesn't matter how many tries. I mean, I don't want you spending 6 hours on this, of course. I'd love for you to get all 8 right off the bat. And then, you know, you don't have to do any extra. But if you do mess up, it's not the end of the world because you can just do another one. So let's see. And it's very straightforward. It's just giving you the 2 endpoints, and then you're going to do the math, okay? So if I come in here and I'm like, oh, all right, let me zoom in a little bit so we're all sure we can see. So there's my 2 endpoints. So what I need to do is I need to come in and say, okay, here's x1, y1. And here's x2, y2. So when I go to find these midpoints, x of the midpoint is just going to be 4 plus 9 divided by 2. So that's 13 divided by 2. And 13 divided by 2 is just what, 6.5? Okay, got it. Leave everything in decimal, right? Don't deal with fractions. Why make your life more complicated, right? So just go to decimal, it's no big deal. Then I'm going to do the same thing for the y's. Y, the midpoint. I need to add my 2 y values together. So in this case, it's 3 and 10 divided by 2. So that's 13 divided, oh, that's funny. 13 divided by 2 again, I get 6.5. Watch. So when I go to enter my answer, I have to enter it with parentheses. You have to put them in. It's not going to do it automatically for you. So you need parentheses 6.5, comma 6.5. If you don't close the second parenthesis, I tested this earlier, and it does actually take it, but it's just a good habit, right? You'll notice before I even type it in, see how it's kind of like grayed? Once you type 1, it knows, okay, we're expecting there to eventually be a second one. So it kind of puts it there in gray for you. But if you don't put the first one in, it's going to mark you wrong, I promise. So watch. This should take it just fine because I have the parentheses and the comma just like I'm supposed to. Let's try another one, and I'll purposely not put parentheses, and we'll see. It marked me wrong last time, so let's try it. So if I'm doing the same math here, let's see. X of the midpoint, I'm going to add those x's together. So that would be 1 plus 8 divided by 2. 9 divided by 2, so that's going to be a 4.5. Okay, great. The second one, the y's. Negative 10 plus a negative 4, and I'm going to divide it by 2. So in this case, that's negative 14 over 2, or negative 7. So watch me type it without parentheses and watch me get it wrong. So you don't do it that way. 4.5, comma, negative 7. Let's see what happens. Oh, see, it's telling me it's not correct. So at least you know, oh, right. I need to do those parentheses. Yes, of course. Let me not forget. And now it should take it just fine. Yes. Okay, please be careful though, because I don't want you to get wrong for something. Oh, and this is nice too. They show you, once you see the answer, you can see that they plot it for you. So it does give you that nice visual. All right. So that's it. You only have to get 8 of them. Does anybody have any questions right now? All right, let me stop